If you are afraid of doctors, it is surely because of the many terrible myths you have heard. Because in our history, there have certainly been many terrible doctors. Doctors who've left ethics behind and caused fear and horror. And while some of them have used violence, the doctor that we're talking about today might be one of the most insidious and perfidious. Yet his actions were not discovered till decades later, and even his victims did not know what had been done to them for a long time.
Het is de sport dat het lukt.
If you want to hear the full story of a doctor's reproductive drive that got out of control and led to one of the biggest medicine scandals in history, and much more, then stay tuned right now.
Following content is for entertainment purposes only.
The Fake Night Show is classed as satire and not factual information. We may address real-life events through satire, but only to entertain our audience.
Welcome back to the Fake Night Show, your most unreliable source for news. It's time for another meme review, so get your chickens and enjoy. At some point in most people's life, the wish for children comes up. They wish for a little offspring, your own mini-me, a sweet and innocent kid.
Alright, let's hit gloves. Come on.
Is that powerful?
Yeah, that was good.
But as you all know, not every person has the possibility to have children in a completely natural way. But fortunately, medicine performs miracles, and what still caused problems at the beginning of the last century is now almost no longer a problem. Reproductive medicine ensures that with the appropriate treatment, numerous couples can be helped to become pregnant. The whole process is of course very versatile and complex and would be enough for a video of its own. But one thing is essential in all cases: a good, trustworthy specialist, a competent doctor with whom you can feel you're in good hands.
Away from the pelvis up to the occiput. Then we wrap this around the patient's occiput and chin, make sure their teeth's not in there.
And this is where our story begins. In the 70s, one of the most trusted and most famous reproductive doctors was the Dutch doctor Jan Karbaat. This creepy guy here. Even if he looks like a man, you should not leave alone with your children for a second. He certainly was one of the most famous people in the fertility industry. He was considered an expert in his field. Numerous newspapers and television stations interviewed him. He was almost like a medical superstar, with a lot of exposure in the media. We'll find out later that at the end of the day, he was just as trustworthy a doctor as a lawyer who cares more about his style than the welfare of his client. In the 1970s, he worked at the Zuider Hospital in Rotterdam, and after quitting there, Karbaat ran his own private clinic in the Rotterdam suburb of Barendrecht from 1980 until 2009, when his clinic was closed because of some problems. But more about that later. Because of his reputation, people visited his clinic for decades. Not only an incredible number of Dutch couples, but also international couples from around the world have been helped to have children in his clinic. And his patients trusted him. They went to the clinic to choose a suitable donor together with Dr. Jan Karbaat. He even told his patients that he would find a donor whose physical characteristics matched their relatives. He asked them for photos of the relatives so he could find a good match.
Waar we proberen op te letten, ook bij het kiezen van een donor, dat je zo'n donor zodanig kiest dat later de hele familie zegt, ja, nee, dat moet van hem zijn.
He even promised her that he would choose a donor that would be open to being traced later. It's important to know that back then, donors were legally protected and could remain anonymous if they wished. A fact that would still play into Jan Karbaat's hands. And not only for his patients, also for the media, the television cameras. He played a sick game.
Het sperma in en het is prettig als u het even in de hand houdt straks, dat het warm is. Als u een of ander boekje wil hebben, dan liggen die hier met dames erin. En hier zit ook nog een film in. Ja hoor, een dame die bezig is.
Yeah, he seems to know the video too well. Over the years, there were always rumors that the doctor had in fact used his own sperm in the fertilizations. It was only in the last decade that the truth about Dr. Jan Karbaat would come to light. At a certain point, many of the children wanted to know who their biological father is, so they started looking. I mean, everybody wants to know who they are descended from. Everyone wants to know their roots. And this urge to know who their father is has led countless people to search for his identity. And even when the search turned out to be difficult, they refused to give up. And I can understand it completely. I think everyone has the right to know who their biological parent is. But Karbaat's clinic stated that the files were in disarray, records had not been properly kept, and that it was going to be difficult to find out who their donor was. Well, as I already mentioned, there had been rumors about bad practices going on in his clinics for a long time. And finally, it became clear. Of course, the rumors were then spread through the media. Many of the children went public as adults and found each other. They found sisters and brothers. And after more and more people conceived in Karbaat's clinic started investigating to find their biological father, it became clear. The trusted doctor had, without his patient knowledge or consent, been using his own sperm to inseminate the woman who came to him desperate for a child. Even though Karbaat himself did not give his DNA for testing when he was still alive, the tests among the numerous men and women proved that many of the children had to come from the same donor. And you can clearly see the similarities that these children have with Karbaat. That's why some crappy newspapers even called them the Karbastards. Look at the eyes, the chin, and also the small hands with the short fingers suggested that Jan Karbaat's genetic material was all around the Netherlands.
Een aparte grove hand.
Toen ik hoogzwanger was, vroegen ze aan mij ook van, is het ook van hier? En ik vond het wel heel leuk om te zeggen, ja, het is ook van hier, want het was van hem. Ik vind dat zij precies de handen van de vader heeft. Korte, brede vingers, brede nagels, terwijl dat bij mij heel anders is.
Anyways, he used his own sperm and sometimes he even mixed the sperm of several men to see what would come out. What sounds like the conception of the baby of adult movie actress Lana Rhoades is just another facet of the sick practices of Dr. Jan Karbaat. It remains unclear how many offsprings are biologically his. When he was alive, he did not have to provide his DNA for testing. But after his death, it was finally allowed to use his DNA for testing. That's why he has been proven 78 times by DNA testing as the actual sperm donor. But the number of unreported cases is probably even higher. While some talk of hundreds in total, Jan Karbaat treated 6,000 women that went on to have over 10,000 children. So there may still be hundreds or even thousands of people around the world who are descended from Jan Karbaat and may not even know it. Jan Karbaat himself was never held responsible for his crimes, because he died in 2017. At the end of the day, Jan Karbaat was a sick megalomaniac guy with a very weird obsession.
Het is de sport dat het lukt.
He was Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Frankenstein's monster at the same time.
It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, like to be gone.
Of course, we tried to invite Dr. Jan Karbaat to the show, but he died. So his story ends, at least for him. But in our history, he will remain in his place as one of the most insane and sick doctors. And it's still going to be interesting to see how many people will discover that Dr. Jan Karbaat is their father. So this crazy story still has some chapters. Now it's your time again, my dudes. What do you think about the story of Dr. Jan Karbaat? Why do you think did he do this? And how would you react if you would find out that your biological father was actually a very crazy Dutch guy with an obsession to reproduce as much as possible? Well, let us know your answers in the comment section down below. And as always, the best comments are going to be displayed at the end of the next episode. This is the Fake Night Show, your most reliable source for memes. Thanks for watching.
Ich bin ein Trottel.
So.